The ship was falling. Corporal Jace Keller felt the whole hull rattle like it was going to rip apart. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed. His head slammed into the side of the bulkhead. Everything blurred. Smoke filled the air. He couldn't breathe. Brace for impact. Someone shouted over the comm, then dashed silence. Everything went black. When Jace woke up, he was lying on his back in the middle of a broken corridor. Sparks crackled above him. The air stank of melted metal and burned. Wires. The crash had torn the dropship in half. His ribs hurt. He sat up slowly, coughing. His uniform was torn, and blood covered his sleeve. Not his, thankfully. Someone else's. Maybe one of the other passengers. He stood, swaying. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He stumbled forward, past twisted metal and shattered panels, until he found the emergency hatch. It had blown open in the crash. Smoke drifted out into bright sunlight beyond. He stepped outside. Zeta-9, a jungle planet. No outposts, no colonies. Just a wide, endless forest stretching in every direction. Glowing with strange green light, the trees were tall and thick, with curling red leaves. The ground was soft and damp beneath his boots. Strange vines moved like snakes in the windless air. Everything looked alive, and not in a good way. He turned around. The rest of the ship lay broken behind him. The crash had torn the fuselage clean down the middle. Flames still licked the side of the engine compartment. There would be no flying out of here, Jace, a voice shouted. 3 survivors staggered out of the wreckage. One was Aliental, with purple skin and glowing yellow eyes. His name was Vorish, the mission's diplomatic envoy. The other 2 were a medic named Toma and an engineer named Lena. They all looked worse than him. Bleeding, limping, terrified. "We're alive," Lena said, voice shaking, barely. Jace muttered. They spent the next hour searching the crash site. No more survivors, just bodies. And even worse, no food. The supply crates had burned in the fire. Every last ration pack. Toma knelt beside the wreckage, holding an empty ration box, eyes wide. "We're stuck here with nothing," she whispered. Varish stepped forward, trembling. "My people cannot digest foreign flora. Our bodies reject it violently." Jace raised an eyebrow. "You mean alien plants?" "Yes. We've studied this world. Its biology is toxic to most sentient species, especially mine. So, you're saying I'm the only one who might be able to eat anything out there?" "Yes," Varish said slowly, "lest you wish us all to starve." Jace looked out. At the thick jungle, the vines twisted like they were watching him. Great. That night, they camped beside the wreck. There were no stars, just a thick blue mist above the trees. The jungle pulsed with strange noises, clicks, shrieks, and a distant, low rumble like thunder. Jace couldn't sleep. His stomach growled. His throat was dry, but the others were worse. Farouj lay on his side, breathing heavily. Lena was barely conscious. Tomas stared into the fire with glassy eyes. They wouldn't last long. Maybe 2 days, at 3, if they got lucky. At dawn, Jace grabbed his survival knife and a torn bit of his uniform to use as a bag. "I'm going out," he said. Toma looked up weakly. "Into the jungle? Someone has to find food." Varish tried to sit up. "You won't survive. This world is ... wrong." "Maybe," Jace said. "But dying here doing nothing sounds worse." He stepped into the trees. The jungle closed. Around him like a trap, the air was hot and thick. Every plant dripped with moisture. He had to push vines aside every few steps. Leaves brushed against his face. Some were warm, like skin. Some twitched when he touched them. He saw strange insects, some the size of his fists, cuddling through the brush. A long-necked creature, with 6 legs, dashed through the undergrowth. Its eyes blinked sideways. Ours passed. Sweat poured down his face. His arms stung from scratches. He was ready to turn back when he saw it. A patch of low, moss-like growth covering a fallen log. It shimmered, slightly green with tiny purple dots. It gave off a soft, almost sweet smell. It didn't look like the other plants. No thorns. Movement. Just ... still. Peaceful. He hesitated. Then he remembered the looks on their faces back at camp. The hunger. The despair. He knelt and scraped some of the moss into his cloth bag. Back at camp, the other stared at him like he was a ghost. "You came back," Lena whispered. "I found something," Jace said, holding up the bag. Varish took one look and recoiled. "That's car root? Good. Sounds strong." "It is. It kills anything that eats it." "Has it ever killed a human?" Varish paused. "It's never been tested. Humans are ... different. Then I'm testing it now." Toma grabbed his arm. Jace don't. He sat down, scooped a pinch of moss, and put it in his mouth. The taste was sharp, like mint and dirt. "Aye!" It burned his tongue. He swallowed. Nothing happened. Everyone stared at him. 1 minute, 2, no sickness, no pain, just ... A warm buzz spreading through his limbs. He smiled. "I think I just had breakfast." That night, Jace sat alone beside the fire, chewing on more moss. His head felt clear. His cuts were healing faster. He could feel strength coming back. The others sat apart, watching him, whispering. Varish finally spoke. "You shouldn't have done that. Why? You're becoming something else. This world is changing you." Jace laughed, but it didn't. "Feel funny? I'm still me, just not hungry anymore." He stood up and looked at the jungle again. It was darker now. The sounds were louder, closer. Something was out there, something that didn't want them here. He tightened the grip on his knife. 5 days. That's what they said rescue might take. If the beacon worked, 5 days on a planet where everything wanted them dead, 5 days with nothing but alien moss and fear, he could make it. He had to. But as the vines moved again, ever so slightly, Jace began to wonder who was watching them. How long before it came closer? The jungle was watching. Jace felt it in his skin. Every time he stepped forward, the vines seemed to twitch. The leaves above didn't rustle with wind. There was no wind, but they moved. Just enough to make him turn his head. He gripped the knife tighter in his hand. His breath was loud. Too loud behind him. The trees closed in, thick, alive. The sun on Zatanine didn't rise or fall. It hung in the sky, glowing white through the mist. Always there, always the same. Shadows to track, stars to guide. Time had no meaning out. Here, only survival. He crouched near a moss-covered log and scraped more of the green and purple. Weed into his cloth pouch. It grew fast, soft, and clean. No signs of rot. No insects touched it. That was strange, but it kept him going. His body had grown used to it. Stronger, even. While the others, especially the aliens, looked worse by the hour, suddenly a hyped chirp echoed through the jungle. Jace froze. It wasn't a bird. Not like any bird he knew. It was more like a warning. He scanned the trees. The undergrowth rustled on his left, then again, closer. A second chirp, this one lower. He backed away slowly. His boots sank slightly into the damp soil. Snap, he turned fast. Just a branch falling? Or something stepping on it? He didn't wait to find out. Jace took off at a quiet sprint, weaving between trees, ducking vines, sliding under a fallen trunk. His muscles ached, but his instinct screamed louder. Run. Behind him, the jungle came alive. Shrill clicking, leaves shaking. Something following. He didn't look back when he broke through the tree line into the wreck site clearing. He was gasping for air. Sweat poured down his back. His legs were shaking. Toma was waiting near the fire. She jumped up. "Jace, are you okay?" Moss bagged onto a flat rock and doubled over, panting. "Something's out there. Big, smart." Varish and Lena rushed from the ship wreckage. "You saw it?" Lena asked. "No, but it saw me." Varish stepped forward slowly. "The jungle here is ancient. It's older than most planets. We've mapped. Zatanine was never colonized for a reason. Why? Because the local life remembers." Jace frowned. Remembers what? Varish didn't answer. That night, they moved their sleeping area closer together. No one spoke. The fire crackled quietly. The alien diplomat sat cross-legged, head bowed. Toma clutched her medkit like a weapon. Lena cleaned a bent metal rod. The only thing she could use as a club. Jace sat awake, watching the trees. He didn't blink. The vines swayed again. In the morning, Lena was gone. Just gone. Jack found her footprints near the ship and followed them for a dozen meters before they vanished into the jungle. No blood, no scream. No sign of a struggle. Just vanished. Toma was crying. Varish stood stiff and silent, staring into the trees. She went to look for something, Toma whispered. She thought maybe the ship's beacon was still working. We warned her not to leave alone, Varish said, voice flat. Now she belongs to the jungle. Stop saying weird things like that, Toma snapped. But Jace didn't say anything. He stared at the moss he had brought back. That same moss was keeping him alive. The others wouldn't touch it. He offered it again. Toma shook her head. I'm not eating glowing weeds. Jace frowned. You'll die if you don't. Then I'll die. Why? He demanded. You trust food packets from factories but not this? She glared at him. 'Cause you're changing, Jace. What? Your voice, your eyes? You haven't slept in 2 days. You're faster, stronger. Even your cuts are gone. That moss. ... It's doing something to you. He didn't answer, because she was right. Later that afternoon, the jungle grew quiet. Dead quiet. No bird sounds. No rustling. Just silence so deep it hurt the ears. Jace stood at the edge of the trees, knife in hand. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Then he saw it, a figure/human, standing between the vines, wearing a torn Navy uniform just like his. Just like Earth Command used 20 years ago. He stepped closer. The figure stepped back. Hey. Jace called out. No answer. He stepped again. The figure turned and walked deeper into the jungle. He ran after it, dodging vines and branches, ignoring the sting of thorns slicing his arms. The figure always stayed just ahead, never turning around. Then it vanished right before his eyes. He stopped. The trees around him were thick, old. There was a large stone in the clearing, covered in moss. He approached it. There, carved into the stone, was a symbol. His breath caught in his throat. It was the Earth Command insignia. It's the old one, from before the collapse of the outer colonies. He touched it with shaking fingers and heard a voice. Not. In his ears, in his head, you should not have brought them here. He spun around. Who said that? The jungle remained silent. You think you're the first? What? You are not. Show yourself. But no one came. Only the trees. He backed away slowly, retracing his steps toward camp. The whole way, he felt it. Eyes watching. Back at camp, Toma was gone. Varish stood near the fire, arms folded. Where is she? Jace demanded. She went into the forest, Varish said. Looking for you. No, she wouldn't. She said she heard you calling her. I didn't, Jace froze. She didn't hear me, he said quietly. Varish nodded once. They stood in silence. Jace clenched his fists. We're leaving now. We don't know where to go. We can't stay here. Won't survive a night without shelter. We're not surviving with shelter. Aresh looked up at him. You are changing. This planet is accepting you, not us. I didn't ask for that, but it happened. Jace turned and stared into the jungle again. He remembered the voice. The symbol. Figure that looked like him. He thought of the moss, the way it made him feel. Strong, clear, awake. He didn't feel tired anymore. He didn't feel afraid, but maybe he should. 5 days until rescue. If the signal ever got out, he didn't know if he'd make it. He didn't know if he'd still be, even when they came. But he knew one thing for sure, the jungle wasn't done with them yet. The fire was burning low. Jace stood alone now, no Toma, no Lena, just Varish, and even he wasn't speaking. The silence between them was deep, not angry, not sad, just Empty. It had been 3 full days since the crash. 3 days with no rescue. 3 days with no food except for Jace. 3 days of listening to the jungle whisper things that didn't make sense. Jace stared at his own hands. Stronger, steadier. The tiny scars on his arms gone. Even the pain in his ribs from the crash had faded. He didn't feel tired anymore, or hungry, or weak. The moss had done something. He didn't know what, but it was keeping him alive. Varish sat under a twisted tree, his eyes closed, arms resting across his knees. He hadn't eaten since the crash. His skin had turned pale blue. His eyes were sunken. Breathing was shallow now. Jace walked over and crouched beside him. "Eat," he said, holding out a handful of the moss. Varish didn't move. "You'll die," Jace said. Varish opened one glowing eye. "That is not moss." Jace frowned. "What?" "Is not of the forest. It is of this planet, yes. But it is not passive. It chooses. You're talking like it's alive. It is." Jace sat back. "You sound like Toma." She was right. "You are changing. I'm surviving. At what cost?" Jace didn't answer. He didn't want to think about the answer. Later that afternoon, the jungle changed again. The sky grew darker, though the sun still hung overhead. Deep, rumbling sound echoed across the trees. It wasn't thunder. It was footsteps, heavy ones. Jace leapt to his feet and grabbed his knife. Varouche stayed where he was. Too weak to run, the trees at the edge of the clearing bent forward, then snapped backward like something enormous had passed by. A moment later, they heard it, a low growl, long, deep, wet, something alive, something hunting. Jace pulled Varish behind. "The half-burned engine, don't move. Don't make a sound," he whispered. From the trees it emerged, a creature at least 3 meters tall, covered in dull gray scales. Its mouth stretched across its head, filled with rows of bone-white teeth. Its arms dragged on the ground, each ending in 4 long claws. It didn't walk, glided, like it didn't need to touch the ground. It sniffed the air and let out a loud, sharp click. Jace didn't breathe. The creature tilted its head toward the fire, then it turned to the stone slab at the edge of the clearing, the one with the human symbol carved into it. It stared at it. Then it hissed. A long, slow hiss that made the back of Jace's neck go cold. And just like that, the creature vanished into the jungle, not ran, not walked, just vanished, as if the forest had pulled it back in. That night, Jace didn't sleep. He sat by the fire, staring. At the moss in his hand, he chewed it slowly, one pinch at a time, letting the strange warmth spread through his body. He was the only one left who could move, think, fight. Varish was barely alive. But he wasn't alone, not really. The jungle was. Alive, too. It whispered. Always whispered. And now he could understand a little of what it said. "You are becoming part of us. You are not like the others. You listen. You survive." He shook his head, stood up and paced. "No," he said aloud. "I'm not part of anything. I'm getting out of here." The jungle rustled gently in reply. The next morning, Jace found footprints near the edge of camp. Human footprints, boots, heavy ones. Not his, and not from anyone in the crash. They were fresh, new. Less than an hour old, he followed them. They led him around the wreckage, past the clearing, and deeper into the brush. This time, the jungle didn't fight him. The vines moved away on their own. The ground was clear. The air even smelled cleaner. Then he saw it, a metal panel, half buried in the soil, old, rusted, but still intact. He wiped the dirt off and saw the letters. Ex-Pioneer 12 Exploration Class. DICOM ISACOM. His heart stopped. That ship had vanished 13 years ago. He stepped further, pushing aside more brush, and then he found it. Half buried in the earth was the entire front section of a dropship. Human-made, old-style, almost fossilized by vines and moss. He stepped inside through a gap in the hull Inside it was dark, but the walls were clean. Not a speck of dust. And in the center of the floor, sitting perfectly upright, was a skeleton, still in its uniform, still holding a knife. Its hand rested on a pile of moss, the same moss Jace had been eating, next to the body, carved into the wall. In jagged lines were words, "I survived, but I never left. IT doesn't let you." Jace backed away, heart pounding. He turned and ran back toward the camp. Faster than before, not just because of fear, but because the forest led him. It opened like it wanted him to run. When he reached the clearing, Varish was gone. No sign of a struggle, no blood. Just the fire, still burning low, and the moss, laid out neatly by the rock, waiting for him. Jace didn't move. He just stared at it. He knew the truth. Now, he wasn't surviving because of the moss. He was surviving for it, and the planet was choosing him. Day 4 had begun, and rescue still hadn't come. Jace didn't touch the moss. He stared at it for hours. The soft green pads with purple spots sat on the flat rock like a gift, or a command. The jungle around him was still. It's not quiet, just still, as if everything was holding its breath. It was gone. No blood, no drag marks, just vanished, like the others. And now the moss was arranged in neat rows, organized, patterned, not the way it grew. Someone or something had placed it there. Jace finally moved, grabbed the moss, and threw it into the fire. It hissed, popped, and turned black. The jungle screamed, not a real sound, not a voice in his ears. But inside his head a pressure, like something angry, something ancient, roaring without words. Jace staggered back. His nose started to bleed. He dropped to one knee and clenched his teeth. "Ah, I'm not your toy," he growled. The jungle answered with silence, but not peace. That night he didn't eat. The first time in 4 days. His body felt it immediately, shaking hands, pounding heart. His muscles ached. His bones hurt. He could feel weakness returning. Whatever was in the moss had kept him going far beyond normal limits. But now he needed to know. Was he surviving? Or was he being prepared? The stars finally appeared overhead, just a few, barely visible through the mist. It was the first time the sky had shown anything real since the crash. Jace stood on the edge of the clearing, watching them. Then he heard a voice. Close. Human. Corporal Keller. He spun around. A woman stood at the tree line. Short brown hair. Earth uniform. Eyes glowing faint gold. Toma, but she was dead. Or missing. Or changed. She smiled, gently. "We're not dead," she said. Jace stepped back. "You walked into the trees," he said. "You never came back." "I did, just not the same." "What are you?" "We are what comes after survival." Jace gripped his knife. Toma tilted her head. "Still fighting? You don't have to. The jungle chose you." "I never said yes." "You don't need to," she said. "You're already part of it." Then she stepped back into the trees and vanished, just like that. Jace didn't sleep. Not because he was afraid, but because he wasn't tired. Not anymore. At dawn, he followed the path where she had gone. The jungle opened again. This time, it led him not to another ruin, but to something alive. A structure. A living one. Vines formed its walls. Branches made arches. The roof was soft moss, glowing faintly in the mist. At the center was a pool. Crystal clear. Still, he stepped closer and looked inside. Reflected in the water was not his face. It was someone else. Human, yes, but older. Worn. With eyes like gold glass. Then the reflection blinked and moved without him. He stumbled back. Trees whispered. He lived and stayed. "You are his echo. You're next." Jace clenched his fists. "No, I came to survive. I'm not staying." But the jungle just breathed. A long, slow exhale through the leaves and roots. He understood now. The planet didn't want to kill him. It wanted to keep him. It was food, but not for the body. For the memory, every human that had ever landed here had been absorbed, not eaten, copied, their thoughts, their minds, their experiences. This place collected survivors like books. The moss wasn't just nourishment. It was the first page. Jace ran back to camp, but the wreck was gone. The clearing, empty. No ship, no fire, just forest. Thick and tall like it had never been disturbed. He fell to his knees. No. It wasn't a dream. Hadn't imagined the crash, the wreck, the others. But now, it was all erased. The planet was rewriting everything. Like a reset. Like he'd never been there. He turned and saw footprints behind him, not his dozens of them, all human. Some boots, some bare feet, all walking into the jungle, all gone. He screamed, loud, long, furious, but only the trees answered. He didn't know how long he walked. Time was gone here. Days meant nothing. He didn't eat, didn't drink. The moss kept growing nearby, offering itself. He ignored it until he collapsed. His hand shook. His heartbeat was slow now. He lay on his back, looking at the sky.
Ow.
Mist was clearing again, and above him, something strange. Ship, a real one. Moving across the sky, it had no markings. But it wasn't alien. It was Earth Command, a rescue ship. Finally, he tried to sit up. He couldn't. The moss rolled toward him on the wind. Just one piece. It pulsed softly like a heart. He stared. At it, his hands trembled. He had two choices. Let go and die before rescue arrived, or he tanned, live long enough to be found. But what would they find? A man? Or a memory already claimed by the jungle? He reached forward, hand-shaking eyes. Wet, the moss waited. Watching. The moss lay in his hand, soft, warm, almost pulsing. Jace stared at it, barely breathing. His muscles trembled. His heartbeat was weak. The cold crept into his chest, not from the air, but from inside him. The ship in the sky was getting closer. Real, not a dream. Its engines hummed low across the treetops. A searchlight cut through the mist, swinging across the jungle canopy like a slow eye. He had to hold on. It's just a little longer. But he couldn't move. He'd gone too long without eating. His body had pushed past its limits days ago. The moss had given him strength. But now that he'd rejected it, it was like he was crashing from a drug he didn't understand. He looked up at the ship again. It was close. A real Earth Command scout vessel. Small two-engine. One of the old recon models. They'd received the signal. They were here. Here, he whispered. Then his vision went black. He woke to voices. Metal. Light's cool air on his skin. A voice above him, calm. Professional. Vitals are stable. Heart rate is recovering. Jace opened his eyes. He was inside the ship. Clean white walls. Bright ceiling panels. Monitor beeping softly. Two officers stood nearby. One human. One alien gray-skinned, with dark markings like a commander's tattoo. The human looked down at him. You're lucky, Corporal. We found your beacon, what's left of it. You were the only one alive. Jace swallowed. His throat was dry. The others, no signs, just you. Your blood was in 4 places, but only one living heat signature. I saw them, Jace. Croaked. They were alive. The alien officer stepped forward. Corporal Keller, you were unconscious when we arrived. You've likely suffered a neural distortion. This planet's At-9 is known to affect cognitive function. Hallucinations are common in solo survivors. I know, Jace said louder. It wasn't in my head. The moss, the jungle, it's alive. The two officers exchanged glances. Then the human nodded to the alien. Run the test. The alien pulled out a scanning device and passed it over Jace's chest. Then his head. The screen turned green. The alien frowned. That's strange, he muttered. His cells are reading partially active with non-terrestrial compounds. Plant-based. Adaptive. Jace sat up sharply. You see? It's in me. The officers backed up. The human pressed a come button on the wall. Containment room 3. Prep for biological isolation. They snapped. No, I'm human. I'm not infected. The human didn't answer. He looked worried. Let me talk to someone. Command Earth. Anyone. I'm sorry, Corporal. protocols clear. Unknown biological alterations, especially from Zeta-class planets, require quarantine. Jace stood up, faster than they expected, faster than he expected. The world around him seemed to slow. There. Voices blurred. Buzzing in his ears grew louder. Something inside him clicked. The moss. It wasn't just in his cells. It was still alive. It was awake. And now, it was reacting. His eyes narrowed. His breathing calmed. His muscles tightened. The alien raised the scanner. Again. Jace grabbed it and crushed it with one hand. The officer stared at him, shocked. Jace blinked. "What's happening to me?" He whispered. The human officer stepped back slowly. "Need help?" "No. I need answers." A low hum echoed through the ship. The jungle. No, the moss. It was here inside him, reaching out. The lights flickered. The screen on the wall turned black, then white words appeared. "We are not done." The ship shook. Sirens flared. The alien slammed the alert switch. "He's compromised." Lock the doors. Jace stumbled backward. "I didn't do this." But he had, not on purpose. The moss had. The lights came back. Everything was calm again. The officers were gone. So was the door. He stood alone in a blank white room. No exits. No sounds, just a mirror on the far wall. He walked toward it. Slowly, carefully, he stared at his reflection. It looked like him, almost, but the eyes were wrong. Too bright, too steady, too steady, too stead. Then the reflection moved. Out of sync, it smiled when he did. Then it whispered, "You're not the first." The mirror cracked down the middle. The lights went out again, and the jungle whispered in the dark, "You came to survive, but you stayed to become." Now, they will learn. Jace backed into the corner, gripping his head. He had escaped the planet, but the planet hadn't let go, and somewhere deep inside him, ... it never would. The lights flickered back on. Jace stood alone in the containment room. The mirror was gone, no crack, no reflection. A smooth wall. As if nothing had happened, he stumbled backward, heart still racing. The jungle's voice, that feeling, was gone, but the echo of it still rang inside him. It wasn't just a hallucination. He knew that. Every nerve in his body said it was real. Something was inside him. The moss hadn't just kept him alive. It had kept him connected. The door slid open without warning. Two armed guards stood outside. Their visors were black, faces hidden. "Corporal Keller," one said. "You've been cleared for debrief." He hesitated, then stepped forward. They led him down a narrow corridor, past closed doors and humming panels. The ship was silent, too silent, as if it was still deciding whether to trust him or contain him. At the far end, a steel door hissed open. Inside was a small room with a table. One chair. A woman sat across from it. Black Earth Command uniform, red insignia on her shoulder. She didn't look up. "Sit," she said. Jace sat. She slid a data tablet across the table toward him. "State your name and rank." "Corporal Jace Keller, Recon and Extraction Unit, Gamma Team." "Serial." She raised a hand. "We have it." "This isn't a report formality." She leaned forward, eyes sharp. "We need to know exactly what happened on Zatnine." Jace looked at her for a long time. "Where's your science officer?" She didn't blink. "Quarantined." "He's ill." Jace narrowed his eyes, scanned me, and then collapsed. Jace felt his chest tighten. The moss, the connection, it hadn't just stayed in his body. It had reached out to the ship. "What did you bring with you, Corporal?" "I don't know." "Then what do you call this?" She turned the tablet around. A video played. Ship footage. Surveillance camera feed. It showed him in the containment room, standing still, then twitching, then speaking, but not in English. Not in any Earth language. Not in a language humans knew. His voice was low, wet, rhythmic, like tree branches creaking underwater. Jace's stomach dropped. "I never said those words." She tapped the screen. "Your mouth did." "I didn't mean to." "That doesn't matter." She sat back. For the first time she looked ... worried. You're not just infected, Keller. You've been rewritten, adapted. The moss isn't just a plant tits, a signal host, a carrier. Something is using you. Jace stood, fists clenched. I didn't choose this, but it chose you. Another voice came over the intercom. Static, then sharp. Bridge to debrief. We've lost contact with the probe drone. It entered low orbit and then shut down. The woman froze. What drone? Jace asked. She didn't answer. He understood. Anyway, you sent a probe back to Zat-9. To confirm your story, she said. To see what's left. The intercom crackled again. Ma'am, we're receiving a signal from the planet. She leaned forward. What kind of signal? Silence. Then the voice returned. Flat. Cold. It's the corporal. It's him. He's down there, too. Jace went pale. What are you saying? The woman stared at him. There's another version of you. On the planet. No, he said. Shaking his head, I left. You pulled me out. You saw me. She stood, eyes narrowed. We don't know what we pulled out. The lights dimmed. A second later, every console on the wall lit up. White letters scrolled across the screens. One of us left, one of us stayed, but both are USA long. Tone echoed through the ship, then silence, then a sound none of them expected. Branches. Leaves, wind, the jungle. Inside the ship, Jace backed toward the door. You have to land, he said. Burn it. Burn the planet. The woman didn't respond. She stared at the screen. Frozen. Then she said something under her breath. Something soft, in a language Jace didn't recognize. He took a step back. What did you say? She looked at him and smiled, but her eyes weren't human anymore. They glowed green, with specks of purple like the moss. Jace. Turned and ran. He didn't know where he was going, only that the ship was no longer safe, and maybe nowhere was. Jace ran. Down the corridor. It's past blinking lights and slamming doors. It's past signs that no longer meant anything. Emergency lockdown engaged. Level 4 containment breach. Isolation failure. The ship wasn't just compromised. It was infected. The jungle had followed him, not in soil, not in spores, but through memory. It had learned him, capotted him man, now it was spreading. Through code, through thought, through everyone it touched. He rounded a corner, slammed into a bulkhead, and kept moving. Sirens wailed somewhere behind him. Gunfire crackled, screamed at nothing. Voices called out over the intercom, but they weren't human anymore. Rhythmic. Calm, not speech, but something older. Something made to feel like language, even if the words didn't exist. He ducked into the weapons bay empty. No guards, no text, no sound except the hum of the walls. He grabbed a plasma torch, clipped it to his belt, and pulled open the emergency panel. Inside, a suit heavy, reinforced for Eva, he strapped it on. Not because he planned to go outside, but because it was the only thing that might shield his mind. He sealed the helmet and activated the diminers. Silence, finally, for the first time. In days, the whispering stopped. His thoughts were his again. He opened the wall panel and accessed the ship's command channel, encrypted. Direct uplink to Earth. He keyed in his override code. Corporal Jace Keller. Recon Unit Gamma. Authorization Delta 13. This is a full biological quarantine alert. Do not repeat. Do not allow contact with this vessel. Purge it, burn it, destroy the data. Static. Then a reply. Message received. Processing. Keller is currently listed as Kia on Zat-9. This channel is not authorized. Jace froze. No, I'm alive. You pick me up. Another pause. There's no active rescue mission in that region. He stared at the screen. What was happening? He never left? Had he ever been rescued? Was he still on the planet imagining escape? Or worse? Was the planet still using his body, and his mind was just along for the ride? His pulse spiked. He tore the helmet off. The suit's silence vanished. The whisper returned instantly, soft, inviting. We are not your enemy. We are memory. We are peace. You survived, and so you belong. No, he whispered. I don't belong to anyone. A part of him. The part that still hungered, that never tired, that could hear things before they happened, that felt calm when it should feel terror. That part wanted to surrender. He turned toward the weapons locker and grabbed a pulse grenade. One blast. Enough to take down a deck section. Enough to take himself out. Two, his thumb hovered over the trigger. Then he heard her voice. Behind him, Toma Jace. He turned. She stood just inside the weapons bay, no suit, no mask. Just her, soft-eyed. And calm. You don't have to die. You're not real, he said. Real is what survives, she said. And you did. You adapted. You became. You mean I was changed? You were freed? He shook his head. You call this peace? You call that panic and fear human? The struggle to survive? The scream of loneliness every night? She stepped closer. The planet offered you? Peace, not control. It offered memory. A way to never die. Jace stared at her. You're not offering life? You're offering surrender. She smiled, and then he pressed the grenade trigger. Flash, heat, darkness. He woke up on the jungle floor, trees above. Mist in the air. No ship, no Toma, just birds. Light vines swaying slowly in warm wind. He sat up slowly, gasping, his body untouched, healthy, no wounds. No suit, his hands were clean. He looked at the moss growing beside him, fresh, vibrant. Waiting, the jungle whispered again. But now, wasn't foreign. It was his own voice, speaking back to him. Welcome back, Jace. We saved what mattered. In the far distance, the hum of another ship entering orbit. New people, new minds, new memories to harvest, unless Jace could stop it. But to do that, he'd have to use what the jungle gave him. Jace stood at the edge of the clearing, barefoot on moss that pulsed gently beneath his feet. The jungle was quiet, still watching, not with eyes, but with thought, with memory. He wasn't alone. Behind him, a dozen shapes moved in the trees, vague. Outlines of others the planet had absorbed, some human, some alien, all different, all the same now. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. They knew his thoughts. His fear, his anger, and his decision above in the pale sky. The ship was descending sleek and sharp, newer than the one that had taken him before, an Earth Command warcruiser, judging by the shape. It's big enough to glass a city, curious enough to investigate. The last ship's disappearance. Jace had one chance. He turned toward the trees. I need control of the uplink route. The moss beneath his feet warmed. A voice's own whispered back. You will burn us. I'll warn them. That's all. They will never leave. Then we make them. Silence. Then, agreement. A vine reached up from the ground and touched his wrist. For a moment he felt the signal raw, ancient, deep. And then he was no longer on the jungle. Flory was inside the ship, not physically. Mentally, a copy of his mind broadcast through the route. Hijacking the warcruiser's systems, he stood in the bridge's central console. The officers around him didn't see him, not yet. He was a whisper in the circuits. He saw the captain, young, sharp-eyed. Unaware of what waited below, the navigator called out coordinates. We'll land in T-minus 90 seconds. No life signs, just biomass readings and one unstable signal. Possibly AI residue. Jace stepped forward and sent a burst of code through the system. The screens flickered. Words appeared across. Every display, do. Not land. Planet is sentient. Contact is contagion. This is your final warning, the crew gasped. What is this? The captain barked. Who's accessing our comms? Trace it, another shouted. But they couldn't, because Jace wasn't hacking them. He was them. His thoughts now echoed in the ship's circuits. The crew tried to isolate the signal. They failed. Another message blinked into view. You sent a man to die. He lived. He became. Now he chooses Jace. Hesitated. This was his moment. He could send them away. He could destroy the ship. He could do nothing. Let the jungle decide. He felt the moss back on the surface. Felt it waiting. Felt it trusting him. After everything. After all the horror, it still let him choose. That's when Jace understood. The jungle didn't want to conquer. It wanted to connect, but connection was dangerous to those who feared losing. Control. He had to make them see. Jack reached into the ship's data vault. He accessed his old mission logs. His footage, the days of survival, of starvation, of change, he sent it all, straight into the Earth's command mainframe. No delay. No encryption. Full exposure, the truth. Then he whispered into the ship's speakers. Now you know. Now you decide. You can burn it, or you can learn, but you won't stop it. Then he disconnected. Back in the jungle, he collapsed to his knees. Above, the ship stopped its descent, hovered, waited, then slowly retreated. It was leaving. They had seen enough. Jace exhaled, long and slow. Behind him, the jungle, our UST led. Toma stepped out of the trees, eyes clear, face human again. You didn't destroy them. No, you showed them. I had to. She nodded, then looked up at the sky. They'll be back, I know, but not the same. No, Jace said, and neither are we. The jungle pulsed gently, peaceful for now, but deep beneath. The moss roots stretched further than the eye could see, and across the galaxy. Humanity was about to understand what it meant to evolve, because survival wasn't about staying the same, it was about becoming something more, and Jace Keller was just the beginning.